Okay, welcome back to another 3D Racer tutorial. This is the fourth video in our series, and in this video we're going to basically get our lap timer to switch down to a best time whenever we cross the starting point trigger. And also getting our starting line trigger to turn on and off when we hit the half point trigger. I do want to notice I have a new computer. I had to put the project in here again. I'm super excited about it, but when it came in, originally mine was set to free aspect. And my timer was looking all kinds of crazy. So remember, the way you have your camera set up or the aspect inside of the game mode, I'm 16:9 will affect the way this works. Please remember on your canvas, also make sure you have scale with screen size. So in case you stretch or move your screen size, that everything moves proportionately to that. So just a good memory. I'm sorry, a good thing to remember. So let's get started. Inside of our scripts folder, going to add a C# script. And I'm going to call this one lap complete. Oh, make sure I spelled that correctly. Press return to save that. Remember, no space between the letters. The name looks right here, so I'm going to open that up inside of Visual Studios. So I don't really need any of the boilerplate. So the update and the start, I'm going to hit delete on that. So nothing in here. And let's kind of like think through logically what we're trying to do. We're going to basically make it so that whenever we hit the starting line trigger and the half lap trigger, we're turning this thing on and off. And we're also taking that display number and moving it down to the other box from the lap time to the best time display. Just taking those same numbers from our lap time manager, so these minute count, minute sec, all this, and just moving it directly over. So first thing we know we're going to need to access our UI, but we're using TextMesh Pro, so TM Pro. That seems fine. By the way, my autocomplete is not set up on this the way that I'm used to, so I'm not really sure what the deal is with that. So I might be a little bit slower on the typing, even though I'm a pretty slow typer as is. So variables, game objects. So we know we're using the start line trigger object. Yeah, starting trigger. I'll just put that in there. And then public game object, half point trigger. Done. We know that we need the text boxes. I could do like public TextMesh Pro, UGUI. I'm just going to stay with game object and do it down below. More than one way to do this. We'll call it best minute display. I'm just going to copy this twice. So boom, boom. And I want this to be the best second display and the best millisecond display. I think that's all the variables I need. So I guess we can just go ahead and work out moving the text up. So we want this to happen whenever this script, wherever this is on, which is going to be our starting trigger collider, is hit. And we're going to make that an on trigger event. So void on trigger, enter. I can get rid of the private. I don't really need that. I don't need the collider other. We're not, we can just leave it blank like this. Just simplify it. If, whenever we hit this, if we're basically going to say, as long as the second count is greater than or equal to 9, we're gonna start moving these numbers down across. So if lap time manager, so let's access that script, dot second count. I'm referencing this variable directly because it is a public, and static means that we can't change it from other scripts. That's what we're doing here. That's why we went with static. So public, second count is greater than or equal to 9. Then let's do these things underneath. we're going to say best second display dot get component. I'm glad my autocorrect is working. I mean, autocomplete was working. It was not doing that earlier. Text Mesh Pro UGUI. Oh man, it doesn't seem to be helpful if you don't type things out right on your own. Dot text, and we want it to say is equal to. Since this is seconds, we want that 0 in the front. So as long as it's 9. Wait, did I accidentally put 2 equal marks? I'm sorry about that, guys. On line 17, I only need 1. I don't know why I did that. I need to slow down and think a little bit more. Plus lap time manager dot second count. So it's going to say 0 plus that second count as long as it's greater than 10 plus. And at the end, we still want to add that period. So like a decimal point, right? There you go. And if it's not, so our else statement. Else, same thing, but just getting rid of that 0. So like that, and 0, nothing there. There you go. That takes care of our time. So whenever we hit this, make the formatting correct and basically put it on the second display. So we can do the same thing for the rest of these. So take your if and your else statement, all of it, Command C. I'm going to go below. I might get a little space here so it's easier to see. Except now we're not doing second count. We're going to do minute count. And instead of second display, it's going to be minute display. Go through, change that. Minute count. And at the end of this one, I think I still want that semicolon, if I'm correct. Okay, so go through, change this one to minute and minute. So the last one is we don't need to have a condition for it because it doesn't go above the 0 conversion. So we can just say basically a line like this. For the milliseconds. What is going on? This trackpad's a little weird for me. Best milli display. Dot get component, and the way I structured it is open dot milli count, and we don't need any punctuation at the end. Okay. Whenever this happens too, so this right here is what's going to take our current second count, minute count, and milli count and put them inside of the best display. But when this also happens inside of the same event here, we want to set those numbers back to 0 on the other script. So lap time manager dot minute count. Well, we can do it all the way through, but let's just do it in order. Minute count equals 0. So setting it to 0. Do the same thing again for your second count. So it resets that current lap time that you're working with. Dot milli count is equal to 0. All right. Now the last part of this is resetting those triggers as well. So making sure that we turn the starting trigger off when we hit it and turn the half point back on. Because the half point does the opposite, right? The half point, it turns off when you hit it and turns the start on. We need to do the opposite. So we can actually just copy. Actually, we have different names, so I'm not going to copy it. I think I named them a little bit different as variables. So I went with starting trigger dot set active is false. Turn that one off. Of course, the order of this one doesn't matter because they're halfway across the map from each other. So, one being in front of the other doesn't really matter so much. Is true. All right. And I believe that is our entire script. So let's go make sure we apply this onto our, I saved that, Command S, I'm gonna get out of 2D mode here. Go to my starting trigger here. I have it currently disabled. At the beginning of the game, you want it turned off because you're going to be coming right through this instantaneously. Let's add in the lap complete script here. It needs to have all of the variables assigned. So starting trigger is itself. Half point trigger here. Under my canvas, I have best lap, best min, all this. So best min display, best second display, and best milli display. I think that's everything. No, we're missing one thing. Our script is calling for an on trigger enter event. So let's make sure that our box collider is set to is trigger. And I'm going to make sure this is turned off to start. And I guess I should run one quick lap. So I'm going to record that, and I'll speed it up, and let's see if it triggers when I get to the end of it. Okay, here we go. Let's see if it moves the time down. Boom. Perfect. Oh, what is this? Gotta figure out what that is. Let's pause. What is going on with my display here? Well, this is interesting. So it moved these times down. If I move this canvas over, let's take that milli display. Is it the formatting of my milliseconds? Where's that number coming? Okay, so I had to think through it and try to figure out like the way to stop those decimal points from, for the milliseconds to collapse out. And basically, I just had to go and add this line here let me expand this back out for you. Get a little bit bigger for you. I still needed to do if lap time dot minute count thing. I had to do the same thing for the milli count. So I put in if lap time manager dot milli count is greater than 9. Then this part works. It basically reduces that number down. I don't know why. It took me a little while to figure that out. And I hadn't noticed that when I did the build the first time, that was an issue. I had never even noticed it before. So I'm going to test that really quick. And as my cheat, I'm just going to simply go ahead and turn on my starting trigger here, so I don't have to go all the way around to see if it works. Did I get it exactly on 10, or did it not convert that number over? Let's look and see. Let's try that one more time. The chances of me getting on 0 twice. Oh, it's turned off. Didn't turn it on. Okay, so I bet it's not taking that 0. So let me switch this here. If it is less than 10. If I put it here, save that. Let's see if that makes a difference. Wow, this is like a little error that I was not anticipating. But it's good to work through it. So let's see what we have here. Turn on my starting trigger. Check those times. So for some reason, it's seeing milli count as 0 when it comes to. I'll have to keep playing with this. For all intents and purposes now, this will have to be okay. I think this is okay. Because this right here, the if else statements only affect applying the 0 to the front. So this line of code should be fine for this. I don't know why I'm not getting the complete number. I'm just getting it round up to 0. I wonder if it's the toString. But for now, this will be okay. And I'll have to come back and look at this again. All right, so let me save my game. And there you go. All right, let's go ahead and make a countdown trigger for the beginning of the game. So I'm going to go back into 2D in my scene view. Canvas, just kind of double click on it, get full view. And I'm going to make a UI Text Mesh Pro object here. And that object is going to be called our countdown timer. There you go. And for now, I'm just going to give it the number 3, so I can just sit in the middle there. Where is that countdown timer? All right, let's play with alignment. So over here in the inspector, I'm going to put it in the center. Might make it a lot larger. Something like that. Play with the size of the box itself. Get that back in there. And the game view. You know what? I might actually lift it up just a little bit. It looks kind of weird down there. So playing with its alignment. Maybe that's off center, but right here. I might want to go a little bit larger. I'm going to go bold as well. Maybe black lettering. Not sure if I'm convinced I like that. Oh, I might add an outline. Let me add a white outline to it and increase that thickness. Yeah, that looks okay. So 3 right there. Pretty straightforward. We're going to make a quick animation to go along with this. So I'm going to go into Window, Animation Window. I'm just adding this tab. It might pop out here for you. I'm going to drag it down to this area. And please make sure you have your countdown timer object selected. And we're going to hit create. So if you get a small window like this, go ahead and hit this downward arrow so we can kind of see a little bit more where it's at. It's going to ask where we want to have this animation. Assets. And in assets, you probably don't have animation folder yet, so you're going to hit new folder and animation. So we have a new folder to save our animations. And the name of the animation is going to be countdown anim. So anim is the typical naming convention for animations. We're going to hit save. So we're going to hit record here. So we've done animation before. We've looked at it, but let's kind of talk through it some. We're going to make it so that this number sort of blinks out when it switches between various numbers. So you have your timeline here, which you can scroll in and out to expand. And it is mouse sensitive, so if you have your mouse at the beginning, it will expand there. If you have it at the end, it'll expand at the end. And then you can use this lower bar to adjust. And currently we're sitting at 60 frames per second. This is meant to be 1 second's worth of time. So I'm going to hit record. And I want to start off by setting my rotation up here to 1. Let's see what that does for me. Just to go ahead, it's going to set a little point for me here. And, you know, on rotation, let's see if I can do it here. If you click on this little dot here, you'll have something that says interpolation. I'm going to change it from Euler angles to quaternion. I don't want to get into why I'm doing that necessarily. It's just going to make sure that it's a smooth transition for this TextMates object. So rotations at 0, I want to have it back to x being 0. And then at 40 seconds, sort of make it like sit where it needs to be. Let's try switching it to an x of 1. And then at 60 seconds, have it at a rotation of 90. See what that looks like if you press play. There you go. So at the beginning, no rotation, no rotation. And then it begins a slight rotation, moving between at 1 and 90. Gets that sort of smooth look. Okay. Now, right now, it's going to keep looping that behavior over and over. So I'm going to get out of record mode and go back into my project folder. Go to assets, that new folder we created, animation. There's going to be 2 different items here. So this is like a controller for the animator, which we did animator controllers last year. But the actual animation itself, the subset of the controller, something that would go in the controller, it has an inspector loop time. Let's turn that off so that it will not continue to loop. So now let's go ahead and go to our audio folder, and you should have an effects folder. And it has 2, a get ready and a go option. So we're going to create 2 empty objects as a child of our camera. So on our car, boom, camera follow, main camera. I'm going to make 2 empties. So create empty. Oh, I didn't do it the right way, but I'm just going to drag it under here. And I'll call this one the names of those files. Get ready. And I'll just command D that for go. Get ready and go. And for each of these, I'm just going to drag on the appropriate audio file. Done. Done. And then for each of them also, turn off play on awake so that they don't start when the game starts. We're going to try to trigger those. So those are now done. And we're going to make a script that's going to run this animation, and it's going to change the text and play the animation through and the sounds. So let's add that new script. So scripts plus C#, and the name of it's going to be called count down. All right. Oh, there you go. Looks good. Okay, so I know that I'm going to be using a text object or UI, so using TM Pro. And let's think about variables. So I know I'm going to want to use the countdown game object, like the actual text object. So public game object count down. I want to use the audios, so public audio source. And one of them was called get ready audio, and the other one was, just copy and paste that, go audio. Move this down a little bit. We also want the timer, so we don't want the laps to start until this reaches 0. So we're going to use this to turn that on and off. So public game object, public game object, lap timer. And then we're also going to make it so that our car can't drive until we reach 0 as well. So same thing. We're Remember, there's multiple ways to do this. So this might not be the only way to do it. All right, so start thinking about it. I'm going to want to have a coroutine. So I'm going to get rid of the update because this is just going to be, in the start, it's going to initialize some things, and then we're going to run a coroutine. So I'm going to go down and create a new IE numerator, coroutine. And I'll call it count start. So this will begin our counter. So we're definitely going to need a yield return because we have an IE numerator. It needs to return some information. Did I get it right? Return new. Did I get it right? Oh, that's good. Okay. So we're going to tell it to wait for seconds. Boom. And let's just tell it to wait for half a second. 0.5f. So when the game starts, we're going to call this coroutine and say wait for half a second. We're going to tell the countdown dot get component that text mesh pro. So we're going to make sure that the number is set to 3, even though we set it as a hard value in the inspector. We want to do it via scripting just to be consistent. Dot text equals the number 3 inside of those quotation marks because it is a string. And we want the get ready audio to play. And we want the countdown dot set active to be true. Okay. So wait a second, play the audio, set the number to 3, play the get ready sound, boop, and then set it active to being true. So we also then want to wait for 1 whole second because this is, you want a second between each one of these events. So before you go to 2, you want to do a couple things. So wait for 1. We don't have to put an F because we're not looking at a float. And then we want to set this countdown back to being false. So we want to basically turn it on and off. There you go. And we're going to copy this and do the same thing for 2. Command C, go down here, and set this text to 2. Perfect, looks great. And then we'll do the third one. Great, already have it copied. So we'll change this to a 1. Now, the last thing we want to do is whenever we set this false, we're going to tell the game to go. So we'll play that go audio. Boop, 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 boop. We want to turn our lap timer back on. So that's a set active true. And then finally, let's turn our car controls on. Now this might create an error because the way our car controls work, they reference each other when the game starts. So you'll probably get a null void error, but it won't mess up your game. It'll just be something that we see, and it'll be fine for what we're trying to do. So I'm going to save this script. Now I haven't yet started it in the void start. So let's go ahead and do that start coroutine and open parentheses, the name of the coroutine, which is count start. It needs to have its own open close parentheses in case we want to pass any values through, and then put a semicolon at the end and save that. So that's our script for a countdown game object. I think, I played with this a little bit and I realized I had to mess with these car controls a little bit. So before we move on, let's go to line 47. The car controls were just kind of iffy for me, so I had to rework those at one point. And so this is what I ended up doing. I ended up saying car controls dot, instead of doing just a set active, it was get component car. What was the name of that? A car controller dot enabled equals true. What was I doing differently with this? I think I had to make a reference for car controller. Yeah, so let me tell you what was happening. Let me comment this line out here for a second. Save that. So let's set it up and then we'll come back. So we need to make an empty game object in the inspector. Save my game here, create an empty, and I will call this object Start Manager. Boom. Add in that countdown script. Divide that in. Alright, so the countdown object is the canvas object that I have here. Countdown timer. Get ready audio. Boom. Go. Lap timer. And then car controls, I think I had to put it in first, so I'm going to go to my car. Was it on my car? So I'm trying to find this car controller script and then turn it off. Make sure that's what I was doing. Yeah, I think that's the way I was working that. It was acting really funky when I wasn't trying to do it via that script. So Start Manager. Drag in my car. If I do that, will it allow me to find this now? Let me no, what was maybe I need to just set that. Save this for a second. Let me try it without fixing the car controls, and then I'll come back to it in a second. I'm thinking of just different ways to do it and make sure it doesn't create any other problems later on in the line. So I think, oh, you know what it was? Okay, so the reason they can't see it is because it's hidden under the, that's what it was. It was hidden under, you know, who used TextMesh Pro, the accessor, the way we can see it. So I had to put in this line called using Unity standard assets dot vehicles dot car so that it could recognize that controller. That's what the one step was that was a little funky. So this allows me to see that script on that controller here. So make sure you add that line. Okay, so save that. All right, I'm going to turn off these things I don't want on yet. So I'm going to turn off the car controller, and you know we're going to get an error in the console when the game starts. We want to turn off our, what was the other stuff? Oh, my mind's blanking out here. The get ready audio. So I don't want to turn that off. It's just going to play those. So that's fine. And then I need to turn off my lap time manager right here. I think that was what it was. Okay. All right, save this. See if this works. There you go. Works great. And we got that null reference exception that I was promising you there a little bit earlier. Okay, so this will be it for this video. This one's getting a little long. The next video will be us adding in our enemy car and then doing dynamic waypoints. So a little bit of enemy AI in the next video.